And joining us now to talk about the weather outlook here as we work into the back half of October, we welcome in our good friend Eric Snodgrass with Nutrien. Eric, hope you had a good weekend, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well today. And we did have a good weekend, although it was very warm and very windy around here. And that's always kind of the predecessor to big change. So it's fall. We
Hmm.
get ready for that, right?
Yeah, we do. And I know we got a big pattern change we're talking about, and there's quite a few different pieces of this that we want to take a look at. I know just in general, you and I were talking off air, just some of the pictures and videos of all the fires that we saw in parts of the plains here the last few days, some of those field fires and more. Really scary stuff, Eric.
It was. And the problem was that the pattern change came in on a big low pressure system that is sitting today over the Red River Valley of the North. And as it emerged this weekend, out ahead of it, we saw southerly winds 30 to 50 miles an hour. We saw winds on the backside of the same speed, but coming out of the north where it was snowing over the Rockies, over parts of the Western Plains. And the issue is that how dry it's been since really about the beginning of September just set the midsection of the country up for large dust storms, field fires, and a lot of just harvest debris getting blown all over the place. And while it was anticipated, you still have to deal with it when it comes through. And a lot of folks there I saw just out driving through fields, putting brakes in the ground, tilling things up or spraying everything down just to get the fires to stop. So it was a very rough weekend, excuse me, for the midsection of the country.
And I also heard even some talk of some corn that was still standing. Maybe some ears got knocked off by some of that heavy wind. And so some issues out there from that wind for sure. But now on the precipitation side, you mentioned that low kind of parked over the Red River Valley of the North on Monday. I know we're seeing some snows in the Western Dakotas, Montana, and then we got rain showers out there. This front really extending all the way from the northern plains and southern Canada down into Texas and Oklahoma, Eric.
That's right, but the one place you mentioned that it's not is pretty important, and that's part of Nebraska and Kansas. So that front's going to stay east of there, and as a result, some of the harder winter wheat belt is going to miss out on this. But if you're in Texas, to eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, then you move your way up into, parts of Missouri and then Illinois. We're expecting a strip in there to get 3 inches of rain out of the next two systems. There's actually two. The front comes through, and then this upper level low kicks through the same region. Unfortunately, it does mean for some severe storms farther south in parts of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and they may extend into Arkansas and parts of western Tennessee. But yeah, we've got a pretty juicy system rolling through there. Now, I start to think about that with how much moisture it's going to put in the ground. Because remember, we've seen so many of these soil moisture maps that just show nothing. I mean, 2% soil moisture. So it's going to take a lot of systems like this to really revive the drought situation midsection of the country. But I wish we could draw that moisture back farther to the west and get it over Kansas and parts of Nebraska and Colorado, states that desperately need it.
Well, how about some of these areas that are going to see this? You mentioned, and I know some of this is going to impact the Mississippi River Valley, but I know you published an interesting note, I believe, last Friday, talking about how much rain we would really realistically need to see in order to kind of recover some of the levels of Mississippi, Eric.
Yeah, so normally I'm thinking about Memphis here specifically. Normally in July we're talking about water depths at their USGS gauge around 30 to 35 feet, and we're currently 10 feet below, z- um, 10 feet below the zero mark, and that's 15 feet below the low level mark. And so the issue here is that the river being so down so low means that all of the tributaries are suffering. So we put down some moisture. What does it do first? Well, it moistens up the soil. Some of it does run off and get to the tributaries, which eventually feed into the Mississippi. But one system can't undo 50 days of drought. And so what I did on Friday was I said, well, is there a recent year where we got pretty low and then made a recovery? And the most recent time that happened where we were almost as low as we are now was 2015. By October 20th in 2015, it was 6 feet below the zero mark. Okay, by January 1, it was back up to 32 feet. And in order to do that there in Memphis, it required the wettest such time period on record over the Mississippi basin. So, which means if we want to recover the river fast, the only way that can make that happen is through flooding. And that presents a whole new set of problems. I said the good news, though, right now is that the pattern is more active, which means we'll start to, you know, eat away at the drought. But we actually don't want it to go too active too fast because we're still trying to harvest a crop and get fall application and fall field work. And now with this pattern breakdown, we're just going to see all those windows tighten up in a big way.
Well, definitely watching those windows tighten up. What are you watching though, say the next 6 months out, Eric? I know we have drought issues across the country. I have to think that that is going to be a big thing you're probably watching the next few months.
Yeah, I'm focused mainly in two areas and two problems. Okay, the first is, let's just start in the central United States where we have such expansive drought at this point, and that's what's led to this Mississippi water issue. I need to see by April a substantial portion of that gone, right? Bigger picture, we have 82% of the land area, the lower 48, in some form of drought. And so what needs to happen is this winter, not only do we need to see the reductions in the midsection of the country because we don't want to start another growing season pre-irrigating a crop, and then the other thing is California. California is having, especially the Central Valley, is having its driest year on record. They can't endure multiple years of that. So, big picture, we need drought area to be reduced, and the best way to do that is to get rid of La Nina. Now, I can't get rid of it. I wish I had that superpower, but I can watch for it to leave. And what we are seeing right now is that there's better chances that once we start talking about that late winter and spring pattern, could be that La Nina is let go, which could deliver better subtropical moisture out of like Hawaii to California. That means the jet stream goes across the country from the west to the east, but it has maybe more of a southwest to northeast component. And there's good and there's bad with that. The good is we reduce the drought issues. The bad is we talk about tight spring planting windows. So, Mother Nature just never seems to want to give us exactly what we want. We're always kind of going from one side to the other. But those are the key features I'm watching. You watch the Midwest and watch California. Those are critical areas for this winter.
Well, Eric, I know as well, South America, we are turning our attention to their planting season here. What are you seeing? What's the latest on that forecast? Brazil, Argentina, et cetera.
Yeah, well, you and I have been talking now for it feels like about 2 months about how we anticipated better rains north. And thankfully, the models got that right. And there's good reason. There's a La Nina. So the northern growing areas, some of the central growing areas got quite a bit of precip. And over the next 10 days, we expect that to continue. So Mato Grosso's report on Friday said that they were just about a percent or so off of last year's, which was the fastest pace in a while. They're about, gosh, what's normal? In the mid 40s, and they're way up there in the upper 60s in terms of percent planted. The issues are south. They're down into Argentina, pockets of southern Brazil. And even though tomorrow and the next day we're expecting some halfway decent rains in Buenos Aires, that province down there in Argentina, big ag province, it's not going to be enough to completely undo the drought. So the issues in Argentina continue. The longer range models really just double down on spring. Remember, it's spring down there. So spring drought issues in southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, which is better rains north. So what we'll have to watch is if La Nina just gets pulled out of the equation, maybe in December or January, subseasonal factors take over, the biggest of which will be the MJO, and that could really drive issues in those states that are planting fast right now, having drought issues when they're trying to get a crop out. So there's always something to watch, and that's why we talk every week, right? Because the narrative changes just about as fast as we can record.
It does. The narrative changes every single day, every single week. And that's why we appreciate a few minutes of your time each and every Monday to talk about what's happening with the weather and keeping our farmers and ranchers informed. With that, Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien, you can sign up for his daily weather newsletter on our website, markettalkag.com. Eric, appreciate it as always. Have a great week, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, you too.